Welcome to the Ask the Geographer podcast series, brought to you by the Education Department at the Royal Geographical Society with IBG. I'm Rachel, your host, and in each episode, I'll be joined by geographers from across the globe to delve into current events, publications, and research, all tied to the fascinating world of geography. Natural events and their impacts on humans are a widely explored area within geography. However, the role humans play in shaping these events is not always as well known at school level. In today's Ask the Geographer, we are joined by Professor of Disasters and Health at the Department of Risk and Disaster Reduction and the Institute for Global Health at University College London, Ilan Kelman. Professor Kelman is well known within the geography community for his thought-provoking work on disasters, including his book, Disaster by Choice: How Our Actions Turn Natural Hazards into Catastrophes. His research challenges us to rethink how human decisions transform natural events into disasters. Ilan, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the opportunity and for arranging it.
Just to start, at school level geography, we tend to think about natural events becoming hazards or disasters when they impact people. In the work we've seen from you, you argue it's the other way around. Can you tell us why that is?
This idea is fundamental to scientists studying disasters. It is absolutely not my idea, but I've taken it up and tried to improve it, publicize it, and promote it on the basis that disasters do not need to happen. Yes, of course, the environment gives us plenty. Earthquakes, storms, avalanches, tsunamis, landslides, volcanic eruptions. We know today that they're happening. We know more or less where they could happen. We don't always know when. We're not very good at saying, well, this earthquake is going to happen at exactly this time or this storm. Since we know where they are going to happen, we have plenty of time to prepare. We have plenty of time to teach people about these situations, particularly teaching them geography, for example. And also we know that we have all the resources, all the knowledge, all the skills that we would need in order to ensure that people are not killed, that people are not injured, their lives are not disrupted, that education can continue, their jobs can continue. Yet too often, we don't. We see disasters. And that's why people with the power, the opportunities, and resources are making choices deliberately or inadvertently, although we're not certain that ignorance is really an appropriate excuse. They are making choices to let nature, what nature does typically and usually, to let nature lead to people being killed, disruption, property damage. That is a disaster. Let's live with nature. Let's recognize what we know. Let's accept that we have millennia of human history, the geography element of time, in order to ensure that we stop problems before they begin, to ensure that we act now to avoid disasters tomorrow and over the next century.
Definitely, it's quite a sustainable approach to things as well.
Definitely aiming for that, and very much hoping that we are helping people to help themselves by recognizing what nature does, recognizing what we do, and making choices to help people help themselves avoid disasters.
For sure. Most of our audience will be familiar, and I've taught this myself, with case studies such as the 2010 Haiti earthquake and the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. I'm going to sound like a bit like an exam question here, though. Using one or both of those examples, can you tell us how humans were part or the main cause of that disaster?
I hope this is what you taught.
It definitely is.
Good. So 12th January 2010, shallow magnitude 7.0 earthquake rocked Haiti. And absolutely, terribly, tragically, around 250,000 people were killed. 11th March 2011, an earthquake more than 100 times as powerful as the Haiti one struck off the coast of northern Japan. And in fact, hundreds of kilometers away in Tokyo, high-rises were swaying back and forth. That was the power. Yet the high-rises did not collapse because they were engineered not to collapse in a major earthquake. Choices had been made. And of course, it wasn't made the day before. It takes a long time to have planning regulations and building codes and to construct these buildings. Long-term generational change to say, in Japan, let's be ready for earthquakes. And the children have drills every year. They learn this in their school, geography class as well as others. They expect the earth to shake. They know what to do. Huge difference. In Haiti, a massive catastrophe. In Japan, a large earthquake, but not actually a major catastrophe, despite the earthquake being far more powerful. And yet almost 20,000 people died in Japan on that day in the tsunami. Japan was ready for earthquakes, not tsunamis. Haiti was not ready for earthquakes. That is the difference between what nature does, the earthquake and tsunami, and what humans do, being ready for that earthquake or tsunami. That is the difference between a disaster and no disaster.
That's fantastic. And obviously these case studies are 16 years old, 15, 16 years old now. Why are these still the examples that are used well to represent the influence humans have in natural events?
To never forget the catastrophe of deaths.
That's a really, really good point. And why particularly these ones that would help us to keep remembering to move on and be different?
Again, it really goes back to not forgetting the importance of history. Sadly, we have disasters every year. We could absolutely discuss what's happened over the last few months. We could, in fact, go back to July 2025 when there was a massive earthquake off the coast of Russia, a trans-Pacific tsunami, no major disaster because people were ready. And we have to remember those also. We don't have to start at 2010. We can go back to the earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, landslides, avalanches, tsunamis from previous decades and centuries. We don't have a lot of time, particularly for students in the classroom or even for a podcast. We have to pick and choose. And the absolutely horrific nature of what happened in Haiti, the good news from Japan followed by the bad news, are just so powerful and poignant. If people are not learning about them, if they're not remembering them, we're just going to forget and make the same mistakes again.
It's that human connection, really, isn't it?
It's all about humans.
Yeah. And kind of thinking about humans, and you just used those two really good examples. And these two examples are very much determined by wealth, by a lot of things. Why is it that wealth still remains such an influential factor in determining disaster impacts?
Wealth provides choices. It does not mean appropriate choices will be made. The earthquake disaster in Haiti did not start on the 12th of January 2010. It started centuries before when Haiti's wealth started to be extracted by external exploiters. Japan has long been wealthy. They chose to put their wealth into dealing with earthquakes, and in 2011, not with tsunamis. Now they're putting their wealth into tsunamis. Without the wealth, there's not much that could be done. Haiti is actually a rich country and always has been a rich country. It's just that other people took the riches away from the Haitians, which is why so many Haitians are poor. Wealth gives those choices. Those choices still have to be taken in order to help people and avoid disasters.
That's a really, really interesting response. And actually, this leads on really nicely to the next question. A lot of our A-level students and the teachers that are listening understand when we're teaching about disaster is the disaster management cycle. We've talked about that off air, but I would like you to think about the stages you think would need to be adapted or developed to better account for the role people play in disasters.
And you taught the cycle when you were in the classroom?
Yes, a little while ago now, yes.
What did the students think? How would they answer that question?
I'm not too sure how they would have actually answered that question themselves, because I think having this context of looking at different events is always an interesting thing to put into there. But actually, if you put them in the shoes of having to make those decisions, there's always different decisions that come out.
Which is so important. There is no single answer. Yeah. What we try and do is actually, we prefer the foundation of not having a disaster management cycle, which sounds a bit strange. Why don't we want them? Because in the cycle, there's always a disaster.
Yeah.
If we break the cycle, there's no disaster. What's interesting is some of the geography curricula I see is calling it a hazard management cycle,
Yep.
which is very intriguing. Yet if there's no danger, if we're dealing with it, there's not even a hazard. So what stage is most important? Well, they all are, because they interlink. And there's so many words out there, whether it's preparedness or planning or mitigation or risk reduction. We still have to know what they mean, how they apply to people. Still, what is the most important? The most important is breaking the cycle so there are no disasters and so that nature's behavior is not hazardous to us because we've dealt with it long before.
That's a really good response. Looking ahead, what opportunities are there to change how humans influence disasters?
I think you told me I should say study geography.
Of course.
Yes, okay. So absolutely, to influence how we absolutely have to study geography. More to the point, apply it. Use it. It doesn't necessarily mean going into a career where your business card says geographer or even geography teacher. It's about the skills, the knowledge, and the approaches which geography and many other disciplines provide. How do we influence people? By ensuring that everyone understands what can and ought to be done to save lives, to avoid disruption, to stop damage. And that's where, by taking this basic knowledge that disasters are not natural, we should avoid the phrase natural disaster. By taking this knowledge on how much we can do to live with nature so that we are not harming nature and so that nature is not harming us. That's how we influence the change. And it may simply be day-to-day life, ensuring that everyone on our street or in our building has the resources so they can be ready, they can help themselves, they know the possible hazards, to use a word, which may affect them, and to know how to act so the hazard does not become a disaster. It may be standing for elected office. It may be saying, no, I want to lead a multinational corporation or an international non-governmental organization or a local one-person company which you found and operate, or a local one-person charity which you found and operate. Not everyone has the same interests. Not everyone has the same career trajectory. Choose your own and ensure that you are influencing to create a safer and healthier world and society for yourself and your family and for everyone around you, which absolutely could be your country if you choose to stand to be Prime Minister.
Lovely. And is there any examples where you've seen this shift already happening?
There are so many positive examples. And in addition to you kindly mentioning my book, Disaster by Choice, we have a website, disastersavoided.com, one word, disastersavoided.com, where we list these examples, and they come from around the world. In 1970, just before Bangladesh had its independence, a cyclone roared through the country, may have killed up to 500,000 people. In the last 5 years, at least 3 major cyclones have ripped through Bangladesh. The death toll was in the dozens or hundreds. Still catastrophic, still unacceptable, yet orders of magnitude less.
Yeah.
Because over generations, Bangladesh has implemented education, warning, evacuation, and sheltering to ensure a cyclone does not become a cyclone disaster. Even we're sitting here at the Royal Geographical Society in London. Many local London councils have turned low-lying areas into green space. When it rains a lot, which of course doesn't happen that frequently in London, the water runs off into these green spaces rather than into homes. It gets wet there for a while. Eventually the water drains and it becomes green space again. No disaster. The more we look, the more we find success. That's, of course, balanced with the headlines which quite rightly scream the tragedy for disasters which do continue. Let us be inspired by and learn from the successes to avoid more disasters in the future.
So kind of coming back to that again, that living with nature, working with nature rather than against it all the time.
That's the whole idea. It should never be playing games with nature. It should never be us against nature. It should also never be us against ourselves.
It's very true.
It's also living with ourselves and ensuring that we recognize what we are sadly doing to each other, but the positivity of the good news of what we do when we help each other, as well as the fact that nature is, of course, wonderful and we do want it. We love these green spaces in London. They help with air pollution, they help with physical health, they help with mental health, and they stop flood disasters. Let's bring ourselves together with nature to help ourselves and nature.
So for you, what is the best way you think that students can access information that is actually correct and relevant to what they're studying?
Very difficult. The best advice is look up a variety of sources and learn how to assess their credibility. It is absolutely a skill. Too often, we simply go with whatever pops up in our social media feed, or we do our favorite search engine and take only the first 3 results. Or perhaps we're looking at sources which are appropriate to our preconceived biases. Instead, look at a variety, but learn the skill of knowing what their biases are, how to assess that, and to make credible decisions when information contradicts.
Thank you. If there was one takeaway you would like our listeners to have from this podcast, what would it be?
Let's start by changing our vocabulary. Let's not use the phrase natural disaster. Let's talk about stopping the disaster management cycle. Let's not even talk about disaster events. It takes a long time, as I said earlier, it takes a long time to construct buildings, to have building codes, to have planning regulations. Haiti's poverty, Haiti's devastation occurred over centuries. This is a disastrous process, not an event. They're disasters. They're not natural disasters. They're not disaster events. Simply changing the way we speak about them will hopefully change our mindset. But it's not just about these often petty debates regarding vocabulary, particularly since people do speak different languages and we have to think about the translations. It's also acting on those principles. So, okay, we accept disasters are not natural, disasters are not events. The takeaway is what can we do together within our resource constraints, within our time constraints, within our life constraints? What can we do together to apply the idea that we can and should stop disasters?
Again, going back to the sustainability element of that.
It's not just about this one hazard which comes from nature. It's about us now and into the future. And I think that S word, sustainability, is so important. We absolutely have to be thinking about disasters and people and places and times within the context of what we want for humanity now and beyond the year 2100.
Ilan, thank you for joining us and sharing your insights. It's been fascinating. It's been a fascinating discussion and certainly gives us a lot to think about in terms of how we understand disasters, or not necessarily that word, in geography. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to the Ask the Geographer podcast series on soundcloud.com or your preferred streaming platform. Dive deeper into the world of geography and stay informed with our wide range of resources, many of which are available for free. School membership grants access to even more resources, including online lectures and supporting materials for both teachers and learners. Explore our resources and discover our additional offers for education at www.rgs.org/schools.